Welcome to the shop again this morning. Today we're going to build a little ornament here, or a little toy if you want to look at it that way. A chopper. I call it the Chopper Copter. And I'm going to cut this out of birch plywood. Very simple little project, kind of fun to work with. You might or might not have some use for it. What we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern here. If you want this pattern, you can pick it up on my Etsy store. Just click the link down below. And as with all my other recent patterns, you'll get a whole bunch of patterns along with it. And each of the patterns that I include with these with these other patterns that you purchase are all free, of course, to use as you please. And you'll find that you'll build quite a collection of patterns after a while. So go on over there and take a look and see. And you can pick up this pattern as well and see if you enjoy cutting it. Alright, what we have to do first is decide what we're going to cut these on. And we're going to use birch ply for this, of course. But we're going to cut them in pairs. We're going to need two choppers, and we're going to need two pilot's heads here. Actually, we're going to use the other pattern on the other side. This is the one that I finally arrived at. And we're going to place these on the copter so it looks like it's a little bit of a 3D effect there of a little guy sitting inside the copter. And we're also going to need to cut out this other chunk over here, which we're going to use to separate the two copters to make it a three-dimensional package, almost a little sandwich. Now, what we're going to use is the birch ply, and I've got these scrap pieces that I've had lying around. These are 7 inches by 5.5 roughly. And what we're going to do is cut them both at the same time, both copters and both pilots as well. We'll take our trusty painter's tape and put it down to hold these two guys together. I like the idea of using the painter's tape as a background because it not only gives you a surface to glue your pattern, but it also lubricates the blade as you're cutting with the scroll saw and makes it smoother on your cuts and easier to peel these patterns off. Now what we want to do is I cut it flat along the blade there, so you put this right along the top, and that will allow us to cut this other piece, the pilot, using the bottom of it, because it's going to be a double one that we're going to need on that also. So let's put some glue stick on this. This is the old pattern, so you wouldn't glue it on that side. Make sure you're gonna, when you print it out, you'll probably only have one side of your paper used. I just didn't want to waste the paper, so I just simply flipped it over and used the other side. The actual pattern goes up here. I'm going to turn it around closer to the top there. Okay, and just put that down like this. You're not going to cut this out. This is just a representation on the pattern to show you where it goes later on. A little bit of glue on the back of this one. And we'll put it right down in there so it fits between the tailpiece on this chopper. Not a problem. I have a 3/4 inch piece of pine, again a piece of scrap, and I'm going to glue this down, this divider, which will also be on the pattern. basically separates the two choppers. And we can cut this out of this piece of scrap too. Good opportunity to use up some of your scrap also. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to put some entry holes on the board. So we're going to take it over to the drill press and probably drill a little hole here and a little hole outside. That'll allow us to cut this thing out. The other one is just one big piece. We don't really need any entry holes because we're not going to cut this out, remember. We're going to go right around it and we're going to be gluing that down on top to give it a 3D effect. So I'm going to go do that on the drill press and I'll meet you back at the scroll saw. Okay, our scroll saw is armed with a number 5 reverse tooth blade. If you've been following my cutting in the past, you know that that's my preferred blade choice. And what we'll do is we'll cut out a little piece first, the internal section first, and then the exterior of that. We'll just put our blade through here. Pretty easy cut, no big deal. Alright, here we go. Okay, we got all the pieces cut out. Now it's just a matter of assembly. But before doing final assembly, what we're going to do is peel off these labels. This is where the tape comes in handy. Real nice, easy job. This centerpiece, by the way, is not anything that's going to be very crucial. If you made mistakes on cutting around the edges a little bit crooked, that's no problem, because it's going to be hidden in between the two copters anyways. And we can peel off the copters and get an idea of where we want our cockpit placed. But yeah, just take this tape off, tape and paper pattern at the same time. It comes off pretty easy. Get rid of all this excess. See if there's anything on the back. There is, as usual. Just peel it off. and toss it out. Don't really need this anymore. Fortunately, the tape is relatively cheap. You can pick it up on Amazon quite inexpensively. It's not as expensive as the regular frog tape. You want to just shop around there a little bit. There's several different types. And we peel off the pilot also. Get all our parts ready here. There we go. And there's a little bit on the back of this too, of course. Always got to be something hidden somewhere. There. Just to dry fit this to see how it works. We're going to take our choppers. They should look similar. And this is going to go in between as a divider. We'll try to line this up as carefully as possible. And of course on either side of the copter, we're going to have our little guy sitting there. And it ought to look pretty good after we paint it and get it ready to go. Okay, the first thing I want to do though before I do that is take these over to the sander, probably the mop sander and the bench. Well, actually, probably don't need the bench sander. The mop sander, I think, and smooth all this out and round over the edges. I'm going to put this on the router too, and I'm going to go around the edges, around those edges over. So let's do that first. Okay, I'm going to round the edges over on the 1/4 inch bit here and go around there. You have to do it very carefully if you plan on using your router. If you're not familiar with a router, you're not comfortable doing this, probably take a file and round it over, and sandpaper ought to do it. In fact, you don't even have to do this if you don't want to. I just think it'll look a little bit better in the center as a centerpiece. Okay, looks pretty good. I'm going to bring this over to the sander and the sanding mop and round that out, smooth that out a little bit, take these scuffies off the edge. I'm going to use a router like this. Watch your fingers, always keep them away from the blade. Give you a quick manicure if you ever touch that, so don't get too close to it. Best thing to do if you're in doubt, as I said, use sandpaper and maybe a file. Over here at the sanding mop, we're going to use that to clean up the fuzzies here. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, probably gonna be out of focus, but there it is. See, it took all those fuzzies off, made a nice round edge here. This doesn't really matter, as I said, it goes in the center. You're probably never going to see it, but it's just another little step to make it a little smoother. Okay, you're going to do a bit of smoothing out on the smaller pieces. Again, using the sanding mop. Okay, we've sanded down all of the pieces. They look pretty nice now. And what I want to do first is I want to get these two copters simultaneously put together like that. But I want them to be so that the blade is nice and even at the bottom. So I'm going to just sort of hold it like that for now, just to check and see if that's level with the bottom. Put it on a flat board to do this, of course. And it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is turn this over. I'm going to take some glue and put some of this glue on the back of the copter. And I need it on this one also. Sort of smudge it around here. And then put our centerpiece on that. I'm going to just sort of eyeball it. I don't really have to be measured or anything. This one goes on top, of course. It moves all over the place, as you can see. I put a little mark here where the cockpit is going to go behind the head so that I can just identify it. I'm going to stand this little sandwich up like that. Just sort of line up the front and the back so that they're together as neatly as you can. And then I'm going to take, actually let that just sort of sagging down below. We don't want it down that far, we want it further up. Okay, let's raise it up there. Get our eyeball here straight. If you look at it from a distance, you can usually get it pretty even. Okay. I'll let that just sort of harden up a little bit while we're preparing to staple it. Make sure they're together. I'm going to take a little brad and put it right in that spot. Sort of like a little clamp in a way. And over to the other side also. Make sure this guy is lined up. You can do this with your eye. Has a little bit of movement in there too, so you can now. All right, it's looking pretty good, I think. Yeah, it's nice and even, and it sort of sits there in case you want to use it in ornamentation or for a toy or something like that. It's pretty handy. All right, now we got our copter together, and we got our two cockpits ready to go. But what I want to do next is paint this part of the copter, and then we're going to paint those as a separate color so that they'll sort of stand out on our copter when we get it together. So I'll meet you over at the paint room. Okay, over here in the paint room, which is nothing more than a box on the other side of the room, and I'm going to use a green paint for the copter. It's Rust-Oleum. Let me put this down here so you can focus on that, I hope, eventually. Well, it's Rust-Oleum paint. My hand behind it here, see if it'll help with focusing. No, it's not going to. Alright, let me. Okay, we're over here in the paint room, and we're going to paint the copter with this sort of army green Rust-Oleum paint. This is a moss green, they call it, satin finish. And our copter is down here waiting, ready to go. So we're going to, got it on a piece of scrap wood, of course. So let's paint this whole thing up. I've got another area down below, which I'm going to use a gray paint for the cockpit. It's going to be glued on this eventually. Let's do this one first. Shake it up a little bit. I'm going to cover the whole thing. Try to get the insides as well as the outsides. You don't want to give it too thick a coat, it will end up running. We're going to leave it like that for now. We'll come back and give it another touch later on. I'm going to go paint the cockpit windows there, and then we'll get together after this thing all dries and put the final touches on it. Okay, we've got the copter all painted green. Came out pretty good. And I've got the pilots painted in sort of a gray color. And what we're going to do, since there's paint on all surfaces, I'm going to put out some drop or two of Gorilla super glue, and what we're going to do is just take the backs of these, one facing that way, so we'll put a little bit of glue on the back of each of these. Sort of dot them here and there. Don't really need a lot, but you can put on as much as you want. Take that, we're just going to sort of eyeball this near the top, like that. And that should work pretty good. We're going to do the same with this side. I need a little more there, I think. Going to be facing up that way, so what we'll do is we'll put it on here. Get it on that center and you're pretty well set. And of course got it on my fingers, so probably end up stuck to the paper towel there. I'll turn this over that, and we'll put this one just like that. We'll have a guy on either side. Okay, I think what we're going to do what we're going to do is put this piece of fiberboard on top there, and we'll put our glue bottle on top of that, and that ought to work pretty good. We'll let it dry there for a little while, and we'll take a look at the final results in a little while as well. Okay, we've completed our little helicopter here, our Chopper Copter, and came out pretty good. You might want to cut one yourself. If you do, you can click on the link down below to get the pattern. You could probably make it different colors than I did. Maybe put some little decals on it. Make it look pretty good. You can suspend this in the air by a string possibly, or maybe just stand it up on a shelf as a decoration. Might be a nice little conversation piece. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, just click the like button down below. Be a help to my channel. And subscribe there while you're there too. Thank you very much for watching.